The pandemic has resulted in all of us having a lot more free time in 2020. There are no trips to go on, movies to rush out to see, or events to attend. That means all of us are looking for new ways to fill the void. For some, that may mean returning to an old friend, like the complete works of Shakespeare tucked away on a bookshelf. But there are also plenty of other ways to put a fresh spin on the Bard of Avon's timeless works. Correspondent Gwyneth Dolan recently talked with UNM professor and Shakespeare scholar Marissa Greenberg about the innovative ways artists are putting a new spin on Shakespeare's stories and characters.
Marissa Greenberg, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much for having me, Brenna.
So Shakespeare's been dead for more than 400 years, but you are still teaching his work to students here at UNM. Some of them probably think, oh, this old white guy who's been dead all this time, he has like literally nothing to do with my life. But if you've ever fought fire with fire, been eaten out of house and home, worn your heart on your sleeve, if you've ever made an ass of yourself, if you haven't slept a wink, even if this is all Greek to you, or you are dead as a doornail, then you talk like Shakespeare. It's everywhere around us. And Marissa, it's books, movies, opera, ballet, comic books, video games, everything. How are artists and writers today making Shakespeare relevant to a new generation?
Well, that's an excellent question, and one that scholar teachers of Shakespeare are grappling with right now. Have been for a while, but especially now in light of all kinds of events happening nationally as well as globally. And maybe the best way for me to start answering your question is to add another well-known phrase to your list, and that is, "O brave new world," from The Tempest. And the character Miranda, who is this young woman who's basically grown up on this island, says this when all of a sudden she sees a group of men for the first time, really. And her father's response is, "'Tis new to thee." And I think that Shakespeare adaptation is part of this larger process of showing how Shakespeare is constantly new and being renewed to make his work relevant, as well as to show some distance between our present and the past. And that historical lesson, I think, is as crucial and as relevant as bringing Shakespeare into our lives and in relation to our lived experiences. One, I think, recent example, the Public Theater in New York, as a result of the pandemic, had to shift gears with its planned production of Richard II from this past summer. It was supposed to be a stage production, which could not take place even in the outdoor theater in which they perform. And so they made it a podcast. They went on to the radio, they produced the play in 4 parts, and inserted within the performance interviews with actors and scholars. And so even before we get to the way they actually put on Richard II, we have these artists responding to a current crisis and saying, okay, we feel Shakespeare is still relevant. We need to still get Shakespeare out there. How are we going to do it? We're going to get on the radio. We're going to get on the airwaves, and that is how we are going to share Shakespeare. This Richard II featured basically an entire cast of actors of color. Richard II was played by a Black actor. Henry Bolingbroke, who becomes Henry IV, King Henry IV by the end of the play, was played by a Black woman. And what the purpose, in no small part, in casting actors of color in these primary roles was to explore issues of power that center around political positions, but also around Shakespeare himself. Who has claim over these texts? Who has claim over these words? Who gets to determine what they mean? And that authority, that cultural authority, is no less significant, I think, than the political authority that's being represented in the play, and that passes from the hands of a Black man to a Black woman.
So the publishing house, I want to switch to books. The publishing house Hogarth invited a series of contemporary authors to write novels based on Shakespeare plays and told them, go anywhere you want with this. And they jumped at the chance. Margaret Atwood took on The Tempest in Hagseed. Anne Tyler based Vinegar Girl on The Taming of the Shrew. Why are modern writers so attracted to Shakespeare still?
Well, who isn't attracted to Shakespeare? Shakespeare is a monument to be reshaped in order to be a testament to whatever position you want to advocate for. It is a place of authority from which to ground oneself, but then there's also just the artistic mastery, the poetry of Shakespeare's words that invite writers and other artists to engage. In terms of the Hogarth series, one of the things that impresses me the most, if I may, are the plays that have been taken on, right? You mentioned Tempest, you mentioned Taming of the Shrew. There's also one that's an adaptation of Othello, one of Merchant of Venice, all hot button issue plays. And then there's my personal favorite, which is The Gap in Time, which is by Jeanette Winterson, which is an adaptation of a lesser known Shakespeare play called The Winter's Tale. But like these other plays, takes on critical social issues and therefore takes Shakespeare's late 16th, early 17th century English dramas and reworks them to talk about subjects that people today want to talk about.
And which reminds me of West Side Story, right? Playwrights also like to take these plays and kind of remix them for the modern day. A lot of people don't necessarily know or think about West Side Story being a remix.
Well, it absolutely is a retelling of Romeo and Juliet in the streets of 1961 New York. At least that's when the movie was made. And yet, here again, we can see how both the adaptation is talking back to Shakespeare, but also, I think, talking to the future, talking to us almost 60 years later, where in West Side Story, with all its dance and music, and it's absolutely beautiful and just a wonderful way to get the entire family watching Shakespeare and listening to Shakespeare, it makes really legible, really visible the issues of race that Romeo and Juliet are about and that are still with us today, both in terms of taking Shakespeare's two households and making them into rival gangs, but also by, if one is comfortable, starting a conversation about what it means to have actors in brownface, right? The issue of blackface has been in the news, in particular as political figures have been caught participating in it. This is another way to get that conversation going and to talk about why this might be upsetting, what it does in terms of exclusion, what it does in terms of biases, and then to think about, all right, well, they're remaking West Side Story in 2021 as a film. How are they going to tackle these issues of race and casting in interesting ways?
There are so many interesting movies out there. I'm going to name some and you just pick one or two. 10 Things I Hate About You, She's the Man, Akira Kurosawa's Throne of Blood and Ron, Baz Luhrmann's Romeo plus Juliet, My Own Private Idaho, Romeo Must Die, The Lion King, Scotland, PA, and Ophelia. Which jumps out at you?
So many of them. I have so many of them on my shelves and love to watch them, perhaps a bit obsessively. Maybe the one that I'll pick out is 10 Things I Hate About You. Because it was made in 1999, Heath Ledger, really popular, and in so many ways is a fun film. A fun film of what I find to be a detestable play, and that's The Taming of the Shrew. And yet even that film, again, 20 plus years later, we can see changes, right? When 10 Things I Hate About You was made, it was a way to rethink this deeply misogynist play and try to make it, a feminist film. But I think now when we look back at it, we see, well, why is feminism being portrayed in terms of anger and a general dislike of everyone around you? And how might that, now in 2020, after the Me Too movement, now that we have a woman vice president-elect, how might we need to think critically anew and make new versions of Taming the Shrew, to think across time, and add more films to my shelf?
Well, the role of women in these films and the portrayal in the plays, it does invite opportunity to rethink. There is a video game based on Hamlet with Ophelia as the hero. You told me you play this game.
Yes, I do. And I will also readily admit that I'm not much of a gamer. Not that I have anything against video games. But this video game is called Elsinore. And like the film Ophelia that came out, I think, 2 years ago, retells the story of Hamlet from Ophelia's perspective. But what the video game does is, in my opinion, amazing. First, as the player, you are Ophelia. Ophelia is biracial. And she is caught in a time loop trying to figure out what is going on in Elsinore and trying to solve the mystery of King Hamlet's murder and trying to avoid her own murder as well. And it is full of Shakespearean language and Shakespearean characters, and remixes them and then literally draws us in a way that I think Shakespeare's plays in their own time and even today can do as well. Draw us in, give us a point of view that we otherwise would not have in our day-to-day lives.
Well, Marissa, thank you so much for giving us all of these new ways to think about Shakespeare. We're going to be stuck at home for a while during the holidays, and now I've got a brand new list of things to read and listen to and play.